For many people, this might be the worst two-season stretch of the Super Bowl in their lives. Now, for the people who were born in Generation X, this game was a blast from the past, because this is how most of the Super Bowls were back in the day. The odds that you got a good Super Bowl that was competitive and exciting for 60 minutes and would be remembered as an instant classic were the same as the odds that I have at winning the Powerball. But for Generation Y and Generation Z, having a great Super Bowl was something that we took for granted. Having a great Super Bowl was the norm, not the exception. Games like Super Bowl 48 and Super Bowl 55 were the exception to the rule, as you could usually count on the game delivering, and if there was a dud, it would be followed up with a really good game the next year, just like how Buccaneers Raiders was followed up with Patriots Panthers, how Broncos Seahawks was followed up with Seahawks Patriots, and how Broncos Falcons was followed up with Rams Titans. And sure, this game was better than last year's game between the Philadelphia Eagles and the Kansas City Chiefs, but that's not exactly saying much. Despite a late attempt by the Patriots to make things interesting in the fourth, we've now had two relatively bad games in a row on the biggest stage. Many people said that the Seahawks were the better team and that their defensive line would give the Patriots fits. And those people, including myself, were right. The Seahawks showed why they were the superior team, and they thoroughly deserved their second title in franchise history, in a game that was revenge 11 years in the making. However, this game felt oddly familiar. It's almost like we saw this exact script play out roughly half a century ago at Super Bowl 11. Because what if I said that Super Bowl 60 and Super Bowl 11 were practically identical? I mean it. What if I said that Super Bowl 60 followed, word for word and beat for beat, the same script as the Super Bowl played in January of 1977? Before I get to that, make sure you hit that like button down below, subscribe, hype up that video, and turn on that notification bell so you don't miss a single video that we post on the channel. Because we post every single day on here about the weird and the wacky history of the NFL with stories like this one that you may not have heard of before. So if you like that sort of stuff, then this is definitely the place for you. Thanks in advance for liking and subscribing, and for hyping up the video, and for helping us grow this community. And with that in mind, let's get to the comparisons. Starting off with some that might not seem all that crazy, and going up to some of the most insane ones that will give you deja vu. For starters, Super Bowl 11 was broadcast on NBC and was held in California, taking place at the Rose Bowl. Super Bowl 60 was also broadcast on NBC and was held in California, taking place at Levi's Stadium. Wow, that's insane, absolutely mind-blowing. Alright, but what if I said that Super Bowl 11 was the third Super Bowl to take place in the LA metro area? LA previously hosted two Super Bowls, hosting Super Bowl 1, which was won by the NFC representative, or back then, the NFL representative, and Super Bowl 7, which was won by the AFC representative against a team that had never won a Super Bowl before, when Miami defeated Washington after playing a backup quarterback for much of the regular season before going back to the starter in the playoffs. Super Bowl 11, the third one in the LA metro area, was won by a team in the Pacific time zone, the Oakland Raiders. The San Francisco metro area, prior to Super Bowl 60, hosted two Super Bowls, hosting Super Bowl 19, which was won by the NFC representative, and Super Bowl 50, which was won by the AFC representative against a team that had never won a Super Bowl before, when Denver defeated Carolina after playing a backup quarterback for much of the regular season before going back to the starter for the playoffs. And Super Bowl 60, the third one in the San Francisco Metro, was won by a team in the Pacific time zone, the Seattle Seahawks. Okay, that might seem a bit odd, but what about the actual teams playing in the game? Forget the location, what about the teams themselves? At Super Bowl 11, you have the Oakland Raiders representing the AFC. The Raiders got to the Super Bowl after winning the AFC Championship against the Pittsburgh Steelers, winning that game by holding the Steelers to just 7 points. At Super Bowl 60, you had the New England Patriots representing the AFC. The Patriots got to the Super Bowl after winning the AFC Championship against the Denver Broncos, winning that game by holding the Broncos to, you guessed it, 7 points. Meanwhile, on the NFC side, at Super Bowl 11, you had the Minnesota Vikings, a team going to their 4th Super Bowl in franchise history, having previously played at 4, 8, and 9. They lost their first Super Bowl, then their second and their third appearances came back-to-back. The Vikings got the number 1 seed in the conference, having won all but 3 of their games in the regular season, and after beating the Los Angeles Rams in the NFC Championship. And at Super Bowl 60, you have the Seattle Seahawks, a team going to their 4th Super Bowl in franchise history, having previously played at 40, 48, and 49. They lost their first Super Bowl, then their second and their third appearances came back-to-back. And if that's not crazy enough, the Seahawks got the number 1 seed in the conference, having won all but 3 of their games in the regular season, and after beating the Los Angeles Rams in the NFC Championship. Oh, and if that wasn't crazy enough, of the 3 games that the Vikings didn't win in 1976 during the regular season, one of them was a 4-point loss to the San Francisco 49ers. The Seahawks dropped 3 games in 2025 during the regular season, and one of them, all the way back on opening day, was a 4-point loss to the San Francisco 49ers. The makeup of these teams is identical, but all of this is stuff that happened before the game. What about the actual game itself? Well, at Super Bowl 11, the winning quarterback was Ken Stabler, as the Raider quarterback finished the game with 1 touchdown and no interceptions. That 1 touchdown went to his tight end, Dave Casper, as in a tight end whose last name is 6 letters and ends in the letters ER. And at Super Bowl 60, the winning quarterback was Sam Darnold, as the Seahawks quarterback finished the game with 1 touchdown and no interceptions. That 1 touchdown went to his tight end, A.J. Barner, as in a tight end whose last name is 6 letters and ends in the letters ER. A little bit freaky if you ask me. While the quarterback play wasn't anything worldly, one of the big reasons why each team won their respective Super Bowl was because of the turnover margin. If you can hold on to the ball and force turnovers, that's usually a recipe for success. At Super Bowl 11, the Raiders didn't turn it over once, and they forced 3 turnovers. 2 of the 3 turnovers that the Raiders forced were interceptions, with the other one being a fumble. At Super Bowl 60, the Seahawks didn't turn it over once, and forced 3 turnovers. 2 of the 3 turnovers that the Seahawks forced were interceptions, with the other one being a fumble. In other words, the turnover battle was identical. And if that wasn't crazy enough, one of the turnovers that the Raiders forced at Super Bowl 11 was by a player with the last name Hall, as Willie Hall got an interception. One of the turnovers that the Seahawks forced at Super Bowl 60 was by a player with the last name Hall, as Derek Hall forced a fumble. On another note, both teams set an early tone offensively, with the Raiders getting the ball to start Super Bowl 11 and driving into the red zone to attempt a field goal. The Seahawks at Super Bowl 60 got the ball to start the game, and they drove down the field to attempt a field goal, getting in the red zone. Just another weird similarity. But what makes this game even more insane is the scoring pattern. Midway through the second quarter at Super Bowl 9, the Raiders led it 3-0. Midway through the second quarter at Super Bowl 60, the Seahawks led it 3-0. At halftime of Super Bowl 11, the Raiders shut out the Vikings. At halftime of Super Bowl 60, the Seahawks shut out the Patriots. The Raiders scored the first 19 points of the game, leading the Vikings 19-0 before the Vikings finally scored in the second half, when they scored on a touchdown pass to make it 19-7. And at Super Bowl 60, the Seahawks scored the first 19 points of the game, leading the Patriots 19-0 before the Patriots finally scored in the second half, when they scored on a touchdown pass to make it 19-7. Both games went 3-0, then got to 19-0, then got to 19-7 midway through the fourth quarter. But as crazy as this all is, the score that really set me off to these two games being identical, and the moment I knew I had seen all this before, was in the fourth quarter, when the Patriots were trying to mount a late drive to get back into it, only for Drake May to get picked off on a pick six. This was the final time the Seahawks scored all day, and it was the one that truly clinched the Super Bowl. At Super Bowl 11, the same exact thing happened. The Vikings were trying to mount a late drive to get back into it, only for Franz Arkenton to get picked off on a pick six by Willie Brown, which was the final time the Raiders scored all day. Both games had clinching fourth quarter pick sixes. But the scoring was not done, because at Super Bowl 11, the Vikings scored the final points of the game when they got their second touchdown of the day in garbage time, coming off of a touchdown pass to Stu Voigt. At Super Bowl 60, the Patriots scored the final points of the game when they got their second touchdown in garbage time, coming off of a touchdown pass to Ramondre Stevenson. The Patriots scored 2 touchdowns and no field goals, with that final touchdown being in garbage time, while the Vikings also scored 2 touchdowns and no field goals, with that final touchdown being in garbage time. Both games were extremely clean in penalties, almost a little too clean. At Super Bowl 11, the Raiders, the winning team, committed 4 penalties, while the Vikings, the losing team, committed fewer penalties and had 25 yards of penalties all game. At Super Bowl 60, the Seahawks, the winning team, committed 4 penalties, while the Patriots, the losing team, committed fewer penalties and had 25 yards of penalties all game. Those are identical numbers between the two games, folks. Literally identical numbers from a penalty standpoint and from a yardage standpoint. Alas, the Raiders won Super Bowl 11, with John Madden winning his first Super Bowl, meaning that the winning coach had 4 letters in his first name and had his last name starting with the letters M.A. The MVP of that game was wide receiver Fred Biletnikoff, who was drafted by the Raiders previously in the second round. He won MVP despite not scoring a single touchdown all game. At Super Bowl 60, the Seahawks won the game, with Mike Macdonald winning his first Super Bowl, meaning that the winning coach had 4 letters in his first name and had his last name starting with the letters M.A. The MVP of that game was running back Kenneth Walker, who was drafted by the Seahawks previously in the second round of the draft. He won MVP despite not scoring a single touchdown all game. It is extremely rare for a non-quarterback to win MVP, let alone a non-quarterback who did not find the end zone. But in both instances, a former second-round pick who was not a quarterback won the MVP despite not finding the end zone. And if that wasn't crazy enough, let's stay with Kenneth Walker for a second. He had a great game, as he was the leading rusher on the day, picking up 135 yards despite scoring no touchdowns. The leading rusher for the Raiders at Super Bowl 11, that was Clarence Davis. His yardage line, no touchdowns, and 137 rushing yards. Practically identical lines on that. Walker had no touchdowns and 135. Davis had no touchdowns and 137. Eerily similar. If this was just 1 or 2 similarities, then okay, that's nothing crazy. But think about it. Both Super Bowls were the third in their respective California metro area. Both Super Bowls had the AFC team get there after holding the opponent to 7 in the conference championship, and had the NFC #1 seed with wins in all but 3 games get there after beating the Rams in the NFC Championship and losing by 4 to the Niners at one point in the regular season. The quarterbacks have the same stat line. The running backs have the same stat line. The pattern of the score was identical. The way each game started was identical. The MVP was identical. The turnover margin was identical, as was the way it happened. The way the final few minutes of the game went down was identical. The penalties were identical. Everything about this game was identical. It was deja vu. It was the same exact script. As right at the tail end of America's bicentennial, they saved that script and used it for America 250. Turns out, when it comes to a game like the Super Bowl, much like life itself, history has a funny way of repeating itself. Check out our live streaming schedule for the next few days. We're live every single day on this channel, whether we're covering a sporting event or playing GeoGuessr or just taking your requests. So make sure you like and subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss a single time that we go live and so that you can join this community. Also, thanks to all our members and our Patreon supporters who get exclusive perks like their name at the end of each video, members-only Q&A streams, and cool emojis to use on videos and during streams. See how you can join this community and become a member or a Patreon member by clicking the link in the description below.